Bum 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 ba-dum bum bum ba bum 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 ba-dum bum. And we're live? Good. Welcome, dear listeners, to Vermont Stretch Radio, broadcast to you live from the heart of the Gimel Mountains. First off, a funeral will be held later this month for Casey, the poor child turned colony of sentient brain-eating fungus that passed away last fall. Casey will be buried with their fungus-ridden corpses and all the remaining spores that the wardens were able to collect. The leader of the protectorate, the leader of the new protectorate, the leader of the wardens. Look, Chevalier attended an interview this morning. Check out the rest of the interview online and watch the leader of the free world dance around today's issues. We'll just be looking at a few choice quotes from Chevy today. We are not a monolithic entity. Which is hilarious because they are a monolithic entity served by every single hero team of any note. We are not an authority. Which is hilarious given that they are the only authority that survived the death of the old world and that they answer to no one at the moment. We are not the bad guys. Which is, again, hilarious given that they are in fact a collection of former villains. The new protectorate, in fact, was built around the adventures of media darling and former terrorist Weaver, and her efforts to recruit more villains to the side of good. As for the wardens themselves, they are led by a former vigilante, the chooser of the slain, and the last surviving member of the first triumvirate. Understand that the closest parallel that many Americans draw to the wardens is the PRT. Give us time to make our impression and show you how we operate. Chevy, it's been 2 years. We've seen what you've done. We've seen how your team operates. You claim to protect the people from Parahumans. You make yourself public perception servants before you make yourselves public servants. You forgive most villains their crimes, with the exceptions of the ones that the public would be too unforgiving of. And even then, you just hide what they did. You take the truth of all your biggest fights so that people don't stress about the dangers of capes, and you hide it. And you forget that the big picture is still something that we all see. You are the PRT, Chevalier. You made sure of that when you helped kill Alexandria. And now, Chevy, sooner or later, some girl that can control rats is going to choke you to death. And I'm going to be there, watching, with a bucket of fishtail popcorn. Today's program is brought to you by Fishtail Popcorn, the taste that reminds you of the days before. It's movie night. Out at the theater, or the cinema, or whatever they called it on your homeworld. You reach a hand down into the bucket, and someone else's hand meets yours. Fingers intertwine, skin smeared with butter and salt, and you smile. Fishtail Popcorn, now available in vanilla and coconut. Now, on to today's B story, which, fittingly enough, features an assembly of B-listers. B-list supervillains. A collection of assembled losers and reprobates have taken control of the peninsula of Cedar Point, now renamed Hollow Point. If you've heard of any of the following names, you are probably a little too obsessed with the Cape scene. I mean, half of these people haven't even done anything of note for the last 4 years. The leadership of Hollow Point appears to be a selection of reindeer and moose-themed capes from Alaska that managed to survive that particular state's utter annihilation. They are Prancer, a shiny man who moves quick, Velvet, a shaker that covers things around her in purple dust, and Moose Knuckle, a brute with his namesake pair of woolly mittens. Prancer and Velvet are the most notable, bit players in the Alaskan Cape scene, formerly known for dealing in weed, and presently known for dealing in weed. Now, I should note that actually being dismissive of a B-list supervillain is not really a smart move. They have a drive to prove themselves and a savage instinct. Even the best of villains had to start somewhere. Who can forget the humble tale of Tattletale, the young and upwardly mobile bank robber that blackmailed and bribed her way into taking over an entire city that she still holds today? I should also note that when I was approached by the de facto leader, Prancer, for an interview by phone, I was instead given a short advertisement to read on today's show. Sorry, I approached him. Not that I would normally accept bribery from villains, I declined it, but I should note the price of houses in Hollow Point is dropping really quickly. And with a selection of apartments and bungalows that you can afford on even the tiniest of post-end-of-the-world life savings, the average protection money in the area is extremely low too, as close to the Gimmel Bait portal as it is. It seems like a really good place to put down roots. I'm just saying, the beaches are supposed to be lovely in the summer. Honestly, I'm thinking of buying a holiday home there myself, getting a tenant in for the rest of the year, earn some money on it. Well, with that out of the way in a pleasant way, we're moving on to our bottom story, and proof that nothing much is happening at the moment, the Norfair disaster. I have just been told that the Norfair disaster is now a registered Cape name. Young Disaster has apparently been waiting for a good name for, like, forever, and thought that that one just fit. Good on her. Now, after a Cape fight turned gunfight in the former town of Norwalk Fairfield, the current town of Norwalk Fairfield, the Norfair span, we found ourselves wondering about the fate of former child murderer Fumehood. The young heroine is expected to make a complete recovery after her having been shot by a concerned bystander the other week. Her teammates are expressing doubts about continuing as heroes, or at the very least continuing as a singular team of heroes. We also have tentative confirmation that the unidentified blonde woman at the Norfair disaster was no one other than Victoria Dallin, alias Glory Girl. Glory Girl, Glory Girl, Glory Girl. Now, her family was the superhero team New Wave, an inspiring national movement for unmasked capes that tragically fell apart after the death of founding member Fleur and the near-fatal shooting of the young Miss Dallin. The team operated out of Brockton Bay right up until the Protectorate's loss against Leviathan. Both Glory Girl and her sister, the healer Panacea, simply vanished mysteriously after Brockton Bay's visit from the iconic 2011 lineup of the Slaughterhouse 9, considered by some to be their most versatile team. Now, I will note that the 2011 lineup was still carried by the core members that had been going strong since the recruitment of child prodigy Bonesaw back in 2005, but the new additions Cherish and Burnscar, while not their most memorable members, really rounded out the team with some much-needed battlefield awareness that hadn't been seen since the loss of Screamer. The Slaughterhouse 9 suffered their greatest loss in Brockton Bay, with a record-breaking 8 casualties to only 1 successful recruit. The remainder of the 2011 season was just a series of skirmishes with Dragon, the world's greatest tinker, and Defiant, a man who is definitely not Armsmaster. Now, despite the inclusion of small-town success story Damsel of Distress, former neo-Nazi blender Hookwolf, the unkillable menace that is Nighthag, and Skinslip, the world's most dangerous masseuse, that final lineup just goes tragically underrated. They'd managed to come out on top consistently against 2 of the greatest tinkers in the world, failing to lose a single member until a fateful battle in Boston led to the death of the team's heaviest hitters, when both the Siberian and Damsel of Distress were taken out in the Nine's final appearance before their 2-year hiatus. Apologies, dear listeners, I seem to have gotten a little carried away there. A subject near and dear to my own heart. And all of us in Killington, really. Where were we? In entirely unrelated news to anything that's come before and will come afterwards, the Parahuman cult, that is to say a cult that worships Parahumans, that is also a cult comprised of Parahumans. The Fallen, they have been recruiting again, which is good news for straight white working class Americans and not so good news for others. There is still some minor controversy over the recruitment of Lachlan Hund, one of those few lucky people whose real name is cool enough that they don't actually need an alter ego if they ever become capes. Now, allegedly, he was just a sweet kid and showed absolutely no signs of wanting to capture and breed capes before his recruitment. Well, I say it's always the quiet ones, and we have to respect his choice, even if we aren't actually allowed to respect it at all because the Fallen are a bunch of monsters. Now, listeners, bad news, but also good news. This month is Master Stranger Awareness Month, according to a tradition dating back to the early days of the PRT. Now, for those of you originally from parallel worlds other than the parallel worlds that most of us are from, the PRT was a morally bankrupt organization that was really good at seeming good at their job. More accurately, the PRT was a government organization established as a means of protecting the public from parahumans, which it failed to do, providing a human authority over parahumans, which it failed to do, and working alongside the government-sponsored hero of the Protectorate and wards to project an illusion of the good guys winning, which it succeeded at. Now, as part of Master Stranger Awareness Month, our next few programs will be including a series of small segments conveying the utter helplessness of the common man in the face of their very perceptions being turned against them. Apologies, a master is a cape who is able to detect animals, constructs, or people and control them. A stranger is a cape that is hard to be detected. And a cape is a person with special powers or abilities that may or may not like to dress up. Small warning, these segments may be unsuitable for children and the faint of heart. There is a whispered voice behind your ear, but there is nothing there. There is the creak of your front door opening, but the door was locked, so it can't be the door opening. There is the table. There is the candle by which you light your nights. Electricity is so scarce and expensive these days. And candles aren't cheap either. There is only the one candle lit at the moment. You are sitting down, in your chair, at home. There are a few thuds and creaks made by your floorboards, deliberately left insecure so that you might hear a burglar. This isn't a nice neighborhood. It didn't used to be a nice neighborhood either. It didn't used to be anything. The neighborhood has only been here as long as you have. You helped build your neighborhood. You knew the kinds of people that were helping you to build your neighborhood. There is a whispered voice behind your ear, but there is nothing there. You run a hand along the length of the barrel of the gun that you were holding. You didn't need to rest with it so close to hand. You were just worried. This isn't a nice neighborhood. But you like to think that it isn't a bad neighborhood. There is a hand resting on your shoulder, but there is no one there. There is a whispered voice behind your ear, but there is nothing there. There is a sharp feeling, a pain as you try to take your next breath, a pain that wells up from inside, an unwelcome pressure stopping you from breathing, but nothing is touching your skin. You relax, your gun dropping to the floor. You relax, hands gripped tightly to the arms of your chair, eyes bugged out as they dart about the room. You relax and feel a slow, steady trickle and the sensation of choking. That was Master Stranger Awareness Month. Today's moral, remember to lock your doors. Now, I'd like to end this week's broadcast with a big shout out to the McGinnises for a constant source of friendship and company, and a reminder that even though England was erased, the English are still calm and carrying on. Good night, Vermont, and good night... breaking news, dear listeners. We have reports of a riot developing near the Gimel Cheat portal. That's not a good thing. Suffice to say, dear listeners, more on this story as it develops. Good night, Vermont, and good night, Killington. This was a fan production. Worm, Ward, and the Parahumans series is the property of John Wildbow McCrae. Worm can be found at parahumans.wordpress.com, while Ward can be found at parahumans.net. Please consider checking out the unofficial Ward audiobook project, a cast of fans bringing Wildbow's work to life at parahumanaudio.com. Thanks for listening.